one, our retail partnerships, a little bit more structure, a little bit more engagement and collaboration around those partnerships. How we set up our huddles, how we engage our partners, what they would like to see from us, a higher level of reporting back from senior management level, myself and my sales leadership teams with retail leadership really has led to more referrals and certainly better results for our financial advisors. Secondly, we've spent a lot of time on practice management, really refining what we do as advisors, segmenting our existing book of business, our A, B, C clients, who we call, when we call, why we call them, really focusing in on a more of a self-sourcing type of a financial advisor, knowing that we will have ebbs and flows at all points in time with our retail partners. And then lastly, really the product, services, and solutions. We have really made a shift over the course of the last 18 months and continue to put more emphasis on fees and planning, which certainly works well in the environment that we are in today. With all the changes and probably the continued changes that we're going to see in the regulatory environment. So, our advisors continue to really spend more time with their clients working on that advisory component, utilizing our team members at Cetera as well as the team members that we have at TCF and our private banking team here. In addition to that, we've really embraced a lot of the technology that's out there right now. We utilize both Zoom as well as Microsoft Teams to engage both our clients and our branch partners. So as an example, we do bi-monthly virtual huddles right now utilizing Microsoft Teams. So an advisor covers on average a 5-branch circuit. They will set up a bi-monthly huddle with all of their members of that particular team, keep it very short, quick hitting, provide ideas back to all of the team members, share best practices, keep it very collaborative, truly in an effort to engage our partners and make sure that they have a greater understanding of what we do and how they can find a few more investment referrals to us. In addition, we've done a number of client meetings utilizing the technology virtually for us. Even though we do have a client base that tends to be a little bit older, we've still found that a number of clients do like having Teams type meetings as well as Zoom type meetings. And then lastly, one thing that we just started using a few months ago, which has been working very well for us, is utilizing the technology, having our clients come into our banking centers and sit right next to their retail colleague while they're doing a Teams meeting with us. So it's worked very well. It adds a little bit more comfort to that Zoom call or that Teams call, which can be a little bit intimidating to some of the older clients, especially if they don't have the technology. So that certainly has added to what we do today to better serve and help our clients. And it's really allowed us to work as well as we can in the challenging environment that we have today.
Thank you, Jeff. Some great best practices there. I'm going to head over to Brett. Brett, how about you? What are you doing differently today that you may not have done prior pandemic and it's working well for you?
Sure. Thanks, Susan. And we agree with a lot of the utilization of the technology and some of the additional resources that Jeff and the team use. We also use Microsoft Teams. Been very happy with it. But really, what the pandemic kind of did for us is it sort of divided the team into 3 parties. And one was sort of stay at home, abiding by state's guidance, and maintain the client base. The second was continue to work diligently, utilize resources, and try to grow the business. And the third was really seize the opportunity, dig into the book, and really drive for results. And what was kind of nice about those 3 different groups across the spectrum was that we started doing just more touches with the financial advisor team about best practices and pipelines and how you're utilizing your other line of business partners. And we even morphed into a bi-weekly, what we called a quarantini social hour, where, the people that were a little more on the spectrum of being conservative and not quite knowing how to react, we're learning from the people who are really thriving in this environment and moving forward. So, it was kind of survive or thrive, and we really saw the team thrive just through getting together on a regular basis and having more constant proactive contact.
Great ideas. Thank you. Alex, I'm going to move to you now. We've mentioned several ways that we've adapted here remotely. Can you tell us at Regions how your financial professionals are engaging with their clients and prospects, while the branches have been closed and may continue to be closed for a period of time in the foreseeable future?
Well, the good news is we're open, and the FAs are a little restricted on what they can do. They can only go to one branch a day. But I would have to say that my team, my sales management team, and my team of financial advisors really adapted quickly. They adapted quickly to the technology, and they also adapted quickly to putting their arms around their clients. I think Brent mentioned it. One of the first initiatives that we had was to reach out to our book of business and call all of our clients to make sure that they were good. In the beginning, the market was uncertain. So one of the first things we want to do was reach out to our clients. We were able to attract a lot of new money, put money to work. And the big thing was we were able to displace a lot of other brokers who hadn't reached out to their clients. And now we were garnering more assets. So WebEx was big. I say now, could you imagine 6 months ago that if I told you you were going to be doing virtual meetings with your clients, you would have told me you were crazy. So I think the pandemic over the last 5 months has kind of helped us become more efficient because we can do meetings now virtually with our clients. We can do them in person. If a client walks into a branch where we're not at, we don't have a financial advisor there, we can join with the banker and with the client, kind of like Jeff said, and do a meeting immediately, where 5 months ago, we wouldn't have done that. So we're becoming very efficient at this, and it's really a testament to the financial advisors and the management team.
Thank you, Alex. And Jeff, you talked quite a bit about, different ways of communicating with the branch staff. Can you talk a little bit about, how the advisors and the financial professionals are feeling about virtual meetings with your clients? Can you kind of talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so again, our clients thus far have embraced the technology as well as they can. We do, like probably many others, have clients that are older that don't have computers, they don't have emails, they never will. So we have some challenges. So we encourage those clients to go into the banking center so we can do a virtual meeting with some of our clients. Like Brett and Alex too, we do have an opportunity to meet with some of our clients face to face, when we can. But in lieu of that, we will utilize that technology. From a retail engagement standpoint, again, we utilize that technology as often as we possibly can. Given the hesitancy for some of our partners and clients even coming into the office at this point in time, given the age.
That's great. Thank you. How about you, Brett? I know, have you been doing seminars for your clients? Have you been utilizing the product partner seminars, for example? How is that working for you at First Merchants?
Well, we haven't done too many seminars for the general public or for our client base itself, but I think at the beginning of the pandemic, a lot of the wholesale partners and product solution partners were being proactive in their communication, and then they really started bringing some great subject matter experts in that you wouldn't normally have access to, that you would have to see in an annual conference, wherever it might be. So I kind of echo Alex. It really did help us fine tune and just open up our eyes and ears and start to utilize more resources and education and industry experts to start to move forward. So I think some of the information that our solution product sponsors and of course Cetera gave to us was something we didn't always see on a regular basis, especially at the push of a button like we do now.
Do you, along those lines, do you foresee using some of those same methods, all the virtual learning, the review meetings and so on with your clients and your branches? Do you see continuing that process and those activities going forward?
We do. I mean, we do. It's something that when you look back, not a huge percentage of clients are ready to go with the full digital or the full online experience. But I think a mixture of increased touches through utilizing the technology and through the thank you notes and through virtual and physical seminars. I mean, when you look at the trend of how some of the consolidations in banks across the United States are going, it becomes convenience for clients to use the online technology available to us. So for us, we want to also follow suit and offer that convenience of any type of communication the client prefers, but we're not limiting it or leaning in one direction until we understand exactly what's right for our clients.
Great, thank you. So recently, in the last couple of months, really, Cetera has seen record months in annuity and life insurance sales, best in our history. So, Alex, have you also seen a shift in this year in product sales or your product mix? And have your financial professionals, have they been increasing financial planning, for example, or doing other types of fee for service?
So we don't do fee for service, but we definitely have seen an uptick in our financial planning, especially since they can do Money Guide Pro virtually. They can go in, log in, and put in all of their information that they need to help generate a plan. Life insurance is definitely a focus of ours, and annuities has always been a big part of our business. Working at a bank, one of the things that we talk about is we really don't drive the product mix at all. We kind of leave that up to the client and the FA. That's determined by them profiling, them doing a Money Guide Pro, and them determining what's the best solution for the client. Whatever that solution is, whatever that product may be, that's what we're going to fill it with. So whether it be an annuity, a mutual fund, or any type of life insurance product.
Okay, thank you. Jeff, you've been in this business a long time, I know, and as a program manager and managing salespeople, have you seen your role at all changing, or with your financial professionals? Do you see it changing in the future? Do you really have any new expectations of your financial professionals and their activities going forward?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think all of us at this point in time are, embracing that because change is constant for all of us. So the answer is yes. Our program is growing very rapidly right now, so my role changes. So for me, it's all about the financial advisors. What can we do to make sure that we are truly understanding our advisors and making sure that we are helping them in every way, shape, or form, making it easier, helping them have a more efficient practice, making sure that their partnerships are tight, truly, being there for our advisors. So from a role standpoint, we are making sure that we have the appropriate sales leadership team around them to make sure that we are truly supporting them in all their needs. From the advisor standpoint, I do see that role changing. I do feel that there are going to be fewer advisors in the future, but they're going to be better advisors, more higher skilled advisors. They will continue to work on their craft. They will spend more time going after the advanced designations that our industry and our clients truly want from us. They will probably end up doing more of an advisory and planning based business, which has been alluded to in this call already at this point in time. So our goal here is to make sure that we try to help our advisors get to a better place on all of those fronts.
That's great. That's great. I know, Brett, you've made several changes over the past couple of years in your program, and this year has been the best in your history, and you've seen tremendous growth. Some of the programs have been changing and more on a temporary basis during the pandemic. They've made changes to their compensation plans. Have you done that this year? And if not, why not? And what are your thoughts on that?
No. So we're making no change to our incentive plan moving forward. And I liked Alex's statement where he says that he doesn't have a lot of input on the products and solutions the advisors sell, and I agree. When Reg BI and a pandemic go through, there's a lot of suitable solutions for a client, but there's one in the best interest. So, a pandemic may have a temporary shift on how commissions are taken on a solution or a product, but it shouldn't change the recommendation or focus. And that's something that we took a step at a few years ago to say that we're willing to make that investment that Jeff mentioned into his advisors, saying, we're willing to allow the advisors to be compensated like they're currently doing commissionable business, but transition that business to more of envisioning themselves as the CFO of their own business, and that they run this business, and it needs to be sustainable, client focused, and have a long-term vision to it. So, we transitioned from about 15% recurring revenue to over 60% last year, and then our big focus now is really enabling, training, and developing our advisors, because that shift of like the turn and burn wirehouse mentality, where you bring in X amount of people and 20% make it after 3 years or whatever it is, that's just not the mentality of it any longer. And we're really putting a lot of resources into training, developing bankers to licensed bankers, associate advisors, all the way through to second story independent advisors throughout their career, with a client-centric focus. So we're on a big quality over quantity focus.
Okay, great. Alex, what are your thoughts on that? Have you made any changes during the pandemic to the compensation plans and or Reg BI? Do you see some changes there, or status quo going forward?
Yeah, so with Reg BI, we changed to a trailing 12-month grid. We were on an annual grid, and we changed to a trailing 12-month grid. As far as the pandemic went, our senior management team really stepped up, and what they did from April through July, they froze the grid for the financial advisors. So if they were at a 28% payout in March and they trailed down over those 5 months, they stayed at the 28% payout through that time. Now, we just eliminated that on August 1st. So for those 5 months, though, they got credited as if they were at a 28% payout, and it won't stop. So wherever they were on the grid, we froze it for that time period, so it won't punish them. If they did better, they'll get rewarded for doing better. So not any significant change, more of a backstop for them, or a safety net, if you will.
Great, Alex. Another question for you. How do you see have you changed your marketing efforts over the pandemic? Are you using more automated tools? Tell us a little bit about if you're using social media, and what you're doing there, and how that may have changed during this time.
So as far as the bank goes, they're always doing different marketing campaigns, but as far as marketing, that's left up to each financial advisor on how they want to use their resources. I can tell you from where I sit, going from C2C to Marketing Central has been a big improvement. We started doing seminars on Marketing Central. We're using Marketing Central to use the resources that Cetera has on our social media, mostly LinkedIn. So not a big shift, but I think more people are becoming more acclimated with Marketing Central than they were with C2C, and we've kind of put a push on that for everybody to utilize it and add all of their clients in there. So at a push of a button, they can reach all of their clients. We're also asking them to segment it. So if something happens where we need to reach out to a client for a certain mutual fund trade or annuities, we have our
We were two banks that became one. Chemical and TCF merged into one bank. So it's given us really an opportunity to take all of everything that we've had and really consolidated it into one here at the institution and really update it and become much more digital, put a lot more online, utilizing the partnership that we have with Cetera at this point in time to help us create really a best-in-class type of service, something that will show very well for the type of clients, whether they're the more of that mass affluent client all the way up to the ultra high net worth client. So yes, we're in the process of creating FA pages on their own, directing clients to a variety of different areas, and we're going to continue to use the resources that we have available to us to truly try to find every way possible to find a few more clients that exist, certainly within the institution or maybe considering the institution.
It's great. Thank you. How about you, Brett? What are you guys doing for marketing and social media going forward, either like during the last several months or going forward?
Yeah, so I agree. The Marketing Central's become much more user friendly, and we're using it very often. It used to be an advisor here or there, and the whole team is utilizing now. And I think in a world where automation is sort of the the opportunity at hand or the competition at hand, providing value. And for us, it's sort of the constant contact through all different types of communication, because when people have uncertainty around a pandemic and the economy and financials, and um, you'll look at a political debate, they'll read everything. They'll read everything they get. So being connected, and for us, it's a big focus on focus why we do what we do versus how we do what we do. And I think people just want to kind of understand and know that you're there. And I think Alex mentioned some of the advisors went out and really started being proactive and looking for clients in AUM that maybe advisors weren't being proactive at. And I think when you make that basis of why you do what you do is more important than how you do what you do, you break through to people.
Well, this has been a great panel discussion, and I appreciate you all being on the panel. And we do want to reserve some time at the end here for questions. So we'll take some questions that are in the chat box, and we will open it up afterwards. But this really concludes our questions for the panel at this time. And great sharing your best practices. And I know we'll be getting your names and numbers out to the rest of your peers, and you'll probably be getting some phone calls from them as well. So thank you all for participating, and we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Enough time, we're going to go through these. So Jeff, I'm going to start with you. One of the questions is, can you tell me more about the financial advisors and setting up their virtual huddles with their retail partners? And do you foresee them doing this and continuing to use this method post-pandemic?
Yes. So typically, the financial advisor will reach out to both the retail regional manager, district manager, and the banking center managers, try to find the time that works best for them based on their branch opening schedule. Sometimes that's early in the morning. Sometimes actually it's a little bit later in the day. So we're flexible as it pertains to our partners. Again, we want to make sure that it's very collaborative. We want to make sure that prior to that call, we're asking questions of our partners. What would they like to see from us? What are some of the challenges that they're having? How can we better help you, better serve your clients? That's it. It's a very collaborative type of a call, just like a typical huddle call that our advisors have been doing pre-pandemic. With regards to post-pandemic, absolutely. This will be the standard for us. This will be the norm for us. Our advisors will still be involved in the branches, and I'm sure that there'll be some involvement in the huddles, but this will be standard practice for us, which will allow the financial advisors to be better engaged and leverage their time with their partners.
Okay, second part of question here, I'll add to that. Are they also doing virtual meetings with your other departments like trust department, lending, And have you had any joint virtual meetings with clients and the all of the other departments at the institution?
So the answer is yes. Microsoft Teams is our standard virtual tool as it's today. So the answer is yes, and we do that in a number of different ways. So we've done client meetings virtually with other lines of business, very specifically our private banking team, where we are a part of that relationship. We do a lot of our huddle meetings with other lines of business as well, utilizing Microsoft Teams. So yes, all the way around, very collaborative if it goes right back to the client relationship or if it goes back to other lines of business.
Great, thank you. If you have any additional questions, please put them in the chat. Alex, this one's for you. You talked about your financial professionals selecting how they want to do marketing using Marketing Central. And you talked a little bit about the seminars on Marketing Central. Do they use just Marketing Central? Do they use other strategic partners? And if so, have you found that any particular seminar is more effective than others in getting client participation?
So for invitations, we use everything. We use Marketing Central, we use the branch to help us participate, and we do utilize all of our partners. We found that probably long-term care is the one that piques the most interest from our clients. It's one of the biggest problems facing the baby boomers now. So long-term care seems to be the one that garners the most interest. However, we've done them on Social Security and many other topics, but long-term care seems to be the most popular one.
All right, thank you. Another question. I'm just, Brett, are you with us? Is Brett here with us? Brett Fisher? I have a couple of questions for Brett. All right. Okay, thank you. So Alex, back to you. You talked about digging down more into your book of business and really reaching out to the advisors to their current book of business. What other tools are you using to do that are available to you through Cetera?
So we've been utilizing all the tools. AdviceWorks has been a tool lately that the portal for the clients is something we're trying to get our clients to adapt to, because they can use that kind of as a one-stop for all of their financial documents, and it helps us locate other assets. So AdviceWorks is one we just started to introduce and kind of, I don't want to say have a push towards, but something we're trying to get our advisors to adapt AdviceWorks, especially their clients, to steer them that way. We use Marketing Central, we use Portfolio Access. So we really try to utilize all of the tools that Cetera provides for us, because we believe it'll help our advisors build their business for the long term. And of course, like all programs, not everybody adapts, but when we can show them the benefit, we have a pretty good adaption rate.
Okay, great. A couple of questions here that you both probably could answer. You mentioned that you have an increase in focus on financial planning. Are you charging for plans? And if so, how much? Jeff, I'll ask that question to you first.
Yeah, thanks, Susan. So the answer is we do use financial planning. I do get the report on a monthly basis, so it helps me determine who is and who isn't. We talk about it on a regular basis with our financial advisors. So typically it's more of the quick plans that we're using, the Zoomers, more so than anything else right now. And then we do have a handful of advisors that are taking it to the next step beyond there. The advisor does have the option to charge, but up until this point, they really aren't. They're using it more, I guess, as a loss leader. They believe that, our financial advisors believe that this is something that every financial advisor should do, and it's really wrapped into all the fees and commissions that we earn off the relationship that we have with our clients.
Great. How about you, Alex? Are you charging, and if so, how much?
We don't charge. We see it as a value add. And in the era of Reg BI, we believe that if you do a plan, it helps you, with your solutions as well. So it helps, with the solution. It also helps justify that solution, which is a big part of Reg BI. So we don't charge. We see it as a value add. We track it on a monthly basis, and all of our advisors use Money Guide Pro. They may do just a portion of the Money Guide Pro, or they may do a whole plan. So it just depends on the client and the.
Okay. I think we may have lost Alex there. Okay, Jeff. Alex, you still there?
I am. Can you hear me?
We're having a little technical. Yes, I can now. We cut off there for a minute, so I apologize.
No problem.
All right, Jeff, we still have you, hopefully?
I am still here.
All right, great. Another question for you. You talked a little bit about your sales team and really surrounding them with the structure and supporting their efforts. And can you talk a little bit about how you're as far as your sales assistants? Do you have junior advisors and so on?
Yeah, that's a big question. So
Much better,
the
huh?
answer is, it looks a lot better. So yes, we want to make sure that we are providing our financial advisors that all the support that they need to be successful to run the type of business that they would like to run. So we have a sales manager in place right now. We're adding another sales manager here to the program at the end of this month. Very engaged with our advisors from a check-in standpoint. We do monthly check-ins with our team to make sure that we understand all their needs and can help. They're also very engaged with our retail partners as it relates to any gaps that we may have. How can we be better partners? How can we earn some more referrals there? Our sales assistants work for a number of advisors, and they're also deployed in a centralized manner too. So they are in market, and they can also work in a centralized type of manner to make sure that they are supporting all the needs of all the financial advisors that they cover and the entire team. On my leadership team, we have a couple of other individuals who also can provide support and resource in a number of different ways, whether it's answering questions on commission, helping with sales assistant type issues, helping from compliance and regulatory type issues. We also have a centralized team that is covering part of our footprint where we don't have financial advisors today, that can also help out and support our branch-based financial advisors in a number of different ways that they may need some support as well. So hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, I think it does. And if not, I'm sure they'll have your numbers. They can give you a call after the fact here. Next, how about you, Alex? Can you talk about your structure a little bit? Has it changed at all due to the pandemic over the last 7 months?
It hasn't changed. So as all of you know, Regions Bank is probably a little bit larger bank than the normal Cetera Bank. So I have 8 sales managers that cover from Miami up to Indiana. And they manage a team of 140 financial advisors. And we also have a team of branch investment consultants that help us manage the 1,300 licensed bankers that report up through us. They help do training, product knowledge. So we have a team of 13 that kind of helps us follow the process on a daily basis. And it's worked out well for us. We don't have any plans to change in the foreseeable future. And on the other side of Regions, it's pretty much the same setup. So I think in total, we have a total of 16 sales managers, 2 regional managers like myself, and 9 branch investment consultants that help support the licensed banker program.
Great, thank you so much. Another question for, I'm going to ask both of you this one. You know, there were a few changes in sales management, program management, I think, that really had to happen, be more innovative, if you will, you know, really embrace the virtual environment. Can you talk a little bit about any changes that you think are in your role going forward as a program or sales management due to these recent changes? Jeff, I'll start with you.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Go ahead, Alex. Go ahead, Alex.
I was just going to say, you know, I was going to say, just like the financial advisors, the sales managers had to adapt as well. So where we used to do conference calls, we no longer do conference calls. We either do a Microsoft Teams meeting or a WebEx meeting. My team in Orlando yesterday had their monthly WebEx meeting, and I was able to join that for, you know, the first half hour and be a part of that. I have every Friday morning call or Microsoft Teams call with my team. So again, I think Jeff mentioned it earlier. This is going to be the way of the future. It's not something that you know, is here just for the pandemic. I think it makes us much more efficient that we're able, hopefully in the near future, we're going to be able to continue to do our job face to face, because there's no replacement for being, you know, in a room with someone and having that personal interaction. But it also will make us more efficient that if something does come up, we can get on, whether it be a WebEx or a Microsoft Teams meeting. You know, with a drop of a hat, I can have all 8 of my sales managers or all 13 of my team members on a meeting in 5 minutes, and we can discuss face to face kind of whatever issue it might be. But we do that every Friday. My sales management team does it every week, and the BICs, which are our branch investments consultants, they now do probably somewhere between 15 and 25 WebExes a month, where they train and do product knowledge with all of our licensed bankers. So I really do believe that this has made us more efficient, and in the coming months will make us even more efficient.
No, that's great input. How about you, Jeff?
Yeah, again, Alex really hit the nail on the head with all of those. We certainly are doing a number of those items as well, utilizing the technology. Um, Having a sales manager drive around to all the branches on a consistent basis is really hard to do. There's a cost save from an expense standpoint. So we will continue to do that, just far less based on our ability to use Microsoft Teams now for our retail huddles, for our one-on-ones with our financial advisors, and as Alec mentioned, leadership calls that we do. And if we need to, at drop of a hat, we have an issue that we need to discuss, we can do that as well. So again, wave of the future, something that we are going to use to become much more efficient and really help our program grow at even faster pace than we are right now.
Great. We have a couple more questions here. Now, you know, do you feel that any specific designations for your financial professionals are more important, or have they really focused it on their time that they've had in working remotely on getting any particular designations that you know
Jeff,
of?
you want to answer that?
Yeah, sure. I'll start on that, Alex. So CFP, I do have a number of my financial advisors that have decided to use the time now to pursue the CFP designation, continue to have a higher skill set, knowing that the consumer, the customers, the clients are demanding more of this. I think what we've seen through the pandemic is fewer financial advisors going forward, but better financial advisors going forward. Therefore, I think each financial advisor is determining which licenses they should have and hold going forward to put themselves in a better position to acquire more clients.
Okay.
Yeah, I would just echo. Yeah, I would just echo those comments, Susan. We really leave it up to the financial advisor. They have a whole menu of designations that they can choose from. And if they so choose to do that, then we'll support them 100%, pay for it, and, you know, get them on their way. But what we do ask is, if they do choose to do it, that they're making the commitment to do it. And if they choose not to do it and back out, then the cost is sent back to them. So we actually asked them to think about this because it is a big commitment, especially if you're going to go for your CFP.
Great, thank you. I have one more question. I think we have time for that. Study groups. I know Brett in his talked a little bit about a quarantini that he has now with his advisors, or the advisors have together, and we're really looking here at Cetera and putting together some study groups with advisors, professional financial professional peers. Do you have that in your institutions, and is that something you feel certainly could benefit the financial professionals if
IRA legacies are a potential tax problem for beneficiaries, but you might not realize that the Secure Act made the problem worse. In fact, there are three things going on right now that will cause IRA beneficiaries to pay more income taxes on the IRAs than what happened to the Secure. You know what those three things are? You probably should, because if you know what those three things are, you are better equipped to help your clients understand why you need to engage with them about how to optimize their legacy using their IRA. So that's what we want to talk about today. The problems have changed, the solutions have changed as well. And so what I want to do is briefly walk through with you what some of those changes are. What are the three things that are causing beneficiaries to pay more income taxes on their IRA inheritance? And then what are the solutions that you can provide to your clients? In the process, you'll find that I'm a big believer in it's not about the products we sell, it's about the stories we tell. And today I'm going to share with you a couple of stories that you can use to engage your clients into this conversation. You won't have to take too many notes on that story because we have a piece that we can send to you that will help you memorize and remember this story so that you can tell it to your clients. So let's dive into some of our content. First of all, what are the things that I'm talking about? What are the three things going on that can increase IRA beneficiary income taxes? Well, two of them are in the Secure Act. One of them is not. Let's talk about the one that's not in the Secure Act first. So my career in the insurance industry started in 1978. At the tender age of 16, I got my degree in insurance from the University of Iowa, and I've been in the life insurance industry my entire life. I've dealt with life insurance agents, financial advisors, wirehouse distribution, some of the largest institutional firms, all of the marquee names that you would all know and recognize very easily. After over 40 years in this industry, we have been calculating RMDs on IRAs the same way. We go to that special table, you're familiar with it, the uniform distribution table. It's got all the factors in it. You find the factor for your client's age, you divide their IRA by the factor, that's their RMD for the year. Those factors have been the same for as long as I can remember, at least 40 years and longer before that, even before I started in the industry in 1978. Well, for the first time, and isn't it about time, for the first time in well over 40 years, IRS is updating the uniform distribution table factors. Why are they updating these factors? They're updating the factors so that they can recognize longer life expectancies. Now, why would a new uniform distribution table of factors that recognizes longer life expectancies increase IRA beneficiary income taxes? Well, there's a domino effect here. Here's what happens. The new table is going to drive lower RMDs. In fact, it's off by about 2 years now. In fact, under the new table, an age 72 individual will have an RMD factor that's almost identical to what it was for an age 70-year-old under the old table. So there's about a 2-year difference in the life expectancy reflected in the new uniform distribution table. And what that means is that a 72-year-old essentially takes out the RMD that a 70-year-old would have taken. A 75-year-old takes out what a 73-year-old would have taken. So what you see is IRA owners will be taking out smaller RMDs. When they take out smaller RMDs, that's the first domino. What's the second domino? Well, when you take out smaller RMDs, you leave more money in the IRA. And when you leave more money in the IRA, then drops the third domino. The IRA grows to a larger value. That knocks down the fourth domino, which is the children inherit a larger IRA. All of this so far is wonderful news until what happens? Until the children who inherited that larger IRA have to fill out their 1040. And they suddenly realize the good news is I inherited a larger IRA. The bad news is I have to pay more income taxes than I thought I was going to pay. So net, yes, it's a positive, but the negative inside of that is that because of the new distribution table, IRA beneficiaries are going to end up paying more income taxes. Now, this distribution table is going to be effective for anyone who turns 72 on January 1 of 2021 or later. So this table is coming. It's almost here, and it will start getting used next year. It's not in the Secure Act. It just happens to be happening at the same time, widely expected to pass. So I expect and anticipate that we'll be using this for calculating RMDs next year. You'll see a little bit of the impact from that as we walk through my presentation today. What's the second thing? Now we're starting to get into the Secure Act. The second thing in the Secure Act that's causing RMDs to increase is going to be that they've pushed the RMD age from age 70 and a half back to age 72. Now, how does that cause IRA beneficiaries to inherit or to pay more income tax on their IRA inheritance? Here's why. So if you had a client, well, first of all, let me back up a minute. Who cares that RMDs were pushed back to age 72? If you look at the statistics, what you find is that 82% of IRA beneficiaries, 82% of IRA owners that are over age 70 are already withdrawing more than their RMD from their IRA. Why? Because they have a relatively small IRA, 200,000, 400,000, 500,000. It's a relatively small IRA. They can't live on 3.5% of their IRA value, so they're withdrawing substantially more than 3.5% from it, which means they're already withdrawing more than their RMDs. So they don't care that the RMD age got pushed back to 72. They're already withdrawing more than their RMDs. So then who does it matter to? Well, if 82% of the population that's 70 and over is already withdrawing more and don't care, it's the other 18%. They're the ones that care. They're the ones that have the money. You all have these clients in your database. They're in your 18%. This makes all the sense in the world because if you're familiar with the 80-20 rule, 80% of the money is in the hands of 20% of the people. It just so happens that 18 or 20% of your clients have all the money. And that's what would be true of your database as well. So, okay, that 18% group is the group that cares that RMDs were pushed back because they didn't want to take any RMDs. You all know these clients. You all know the ones that don't want to take RMDs out of their IRA, right? So what are they doing instead? They would like to wait. Well, think about it mathematically. If you had a client with a $1 million IRA, their first RMD under the old rules, when they had to start at 70 and a half, their first RMD would have been around $35,000 to $40,000, $36,500 to be exact. And then at age 71, they would have taken another RMD of $35,000 to $40,000. So under the new rules, they don't have to take those first two RMDs. That leaves approximately $75,000 extra money inside that $1 million IRA. Now, if you let that money sit and grow for another 15 years between their early 70s and the time they die in their mid 80s, that $75,000 could grow to be another $150,000 or $200,000 of value in their IRA. And we're in the same domino game. They don't take an RMD till age 72. It leaves an extra $75,000 in their IRA. It grows to be an extra $200,000 in their IRA. And when their children inherit it, sure, they inherited an extra $200,000, but that extra $200,000 in a 40% tax rate is going to drive an additional $80,000 worth of income taxes to those IRA beneficiaries. So sure, they inherited more, but $80,000 of additional taxes in most people's situations, that's a real number. So there's the second reason why IRA beneficiary income taxes will be increasing. The third one is one that a lot of people know about. It's the new 10-year rule, the elimination of lifetime stretching. There are numerous exceptions. I won't get into those exceptions today. If you look at those exceptions closely, they're kind of like trying to fly an F-14 through the eye of a needle. It's very difficult to qualify for a lifetime stretch exception under the Secure Act. Won't get into the details on it. Just know that the vast majority of your clients now will face the 10-year rule. Well, how does this 10-year rule work? And why does that generate more IRA beneficiary income taxes? Watch what's happening here. Most people don't see this. They haven't charted out what happens when somebody inherits an IRA under the Secure Act. So remember, with this new 10-year rule, there are no RMDs anymore. Nobody has to take any money out until you get to the 10th year. So the IRS doesn't care if you take it all out in the first year, take it all out in the 10th year, take it all out in the third year, a little bit every year. They don't care as long as all the money's out at the end of 10 years. Well, what many clients will do is sit on that money, let it grow tax deferred for an extra 10 years, and then take the money out and pay taxes. But remember, the people inheriting these IRAs are children of those 18 percenters, those people that have all the money, which means they're inheriting large IRAs. So you have a client dies in their mid 80s. Their daughter, who's let's just say 50 years old, inherits this IRA for $1 million. And she decides to take advantage of the 10-year waiting period under the Secure Act. What happens? Let me show you graphically what that's going to look like. It looks like this. So if they started out with a $1 million IRA, what's going to happen? Well, that IRA is going to grow. And if we grow it at an assumed growth rate, here I'm going to assume a 5.25% growth rate. And I'll explain to you why I chose a 5.25% growth rate in just a minute. That IRA would grow from $1 million when that daughter is age 50 to $1.66 million by the time she's age 60. Now what happens? Well, she's 60 years old. She's probably still working. And now she has to, on top of her earned income, put an extra 1.6 or $1.7 million on her 1040. What tax rate is that going to get hit with? Well, I don't know what tax rates are going to be 10 years from now, but considering what's happening to the national debt, I have a suspicion that tax rates could actually go up. But let's just assume that they're in a 40% tax rate, just for the sake of simple math. When you pay 40% taxes on this $1.7 million IRA, what's going to happen? Well, you're going to pay taxes of about $667,000. What does that leave you with? It leaves you with $858 more than the $1 million that you started with. What's the moral of this story? The moral of this story is that under the Secure Act, your clients that take advantage of the ability to sit on an inherited IRA for 10 years, they will virtually give all of that 10 years of growth back to the IRS in the form of income taxes. How many people do you think saw that coming? Virtually nobody. Now, I said I was going to explain why I chose this 5.25% growth rate. Where did 5.25% come from? It's your break-even growth rate if you're going to assume a 40% tax rate. You see, if you have money growing at 5.25% and taxed at 40%, that's how you end up back where you started. If you wanted to have more money than you started out with at an assumed tax rate of 40%, you would need more than a 5.25% growth rate. So I just put that in there as a break-even rate. If your clients aren't getting at least 5.25%, they won't end up with more money than they started with. If tax rates go up, they'll need to earn even more than 5.25% to make that work. So now you can see all three things and the reasons why these are all geared to make IRA beneficiaries pay more taxes on the IRA. So what are we going to talk about today? Our objective today is to demonstrate how you can improve that IRA legacy. We're going to do it by describing first what IRA owners typically do. That'll set our baseline. And then we'll talk about how we can compare it to two simple but effective ideas incorporating life insurance into their solution that allows you and your clients to maximize the after-tax value of the IRA legacy that they send down to their heirs. Now, how many of your clients would like to know about simple but effective ideas that allow them to maximize the value of the IRA legacy that they're leaving behind? As one of my favorite lines in wealth transfer planning goes, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, if there was a way to leave them more, you'd probably want to know about it, wouldn't you? Try asking one of your wealthy clients that question once or twice about the legacy they plan to leave behind. If there was a way to leave them more, you'd probably want to know about it, wouldn't you? They will definitely want to know, and that's where the rest of this presentation comes from. So let's talk about IRAs and RMDs and how RMDs work as a percentage of an IRA account balance. Now, this is not rocket science to you. This is rocket science to your clients. But there's a point that I'll make once we walk through this story. So here's a typical chart showing IRAs with their RMDs as a percentage of the IRA account value. Now, I've already incorporated the Secure Act into this graphic. You can see I'm starting my RMDs at age 72 instead of the old way under age 70. And I've also incorporated into these calculations the new uniform distribution table factors. Most people don't have them, don't know where they are. I have them. I used them in my calculations here today. And what you notice is that under the Secure Act, when you incorporate the new uniform distribution table factors, next year, when your 72-year-old client needs to take their first RMD from their IRA, that RMD will be about 3.66% of their IRA account value. Now, what's the point here? If you've done much work with RMDs, you would know that under the old rules, prior to the Secure Act, a 70-year-old client, the RMD factor in the uniform distribution table created their first RMD at 3.65% of their IRA account balance. And here under the Secure Act, a 72-year-old takes 3.66%, almost the exact same amount that a 70-year-old used to take. That's the age offset that you see in the update to the uniform distribution table factors. So here you are, you're 72 years old, take your first RMD, 3.66% of your IRA account value. By the time you reach your normal life expectancy, let's just call it 85 for simplicity of conversation, your RMDs are now up to 6.25% of your IRA value. By the time you're 90, you're at 8.25% of your IRA value. At 95, you're at 11.25%. At age 100, you're at over 15.5% of your IRA value. Okay, we get this. We understand how this all works. But let me introduce to you something else to think about. What if I took the graph that we just looked at and I used an assumed growth rate of 5.25%? What if I used that same 5.25% and drew a line across our graph here at 5.25%, showing our 5.25% assumed projected growth rate? What happens? Well, the first thing you notice is here at age 81, you'll notice I've got an arrow showing that we have what I call the break-even point. What's the break-even point? That's the point where the RMDs exceed your IRA earnings. If you're forecasting this IRA at 5.25%, prior to that break-even point, what's happening? Well, you're earning 5.25%, but you're taking out less than that as an RMD, which means your IRA continues to grow every year. But once you get past that break-even point, what happens? Well, now your RMDs exceed your 5.25% growth. And what does that mean? That means your IRA is going to go down in value every single year. Okay, I get that too, but let's graph it and see what it means. And you can create this graph. I'm sure you have software on your system where you can do an IRA forecast, but if you can do it in an area graph like this, you will get a hump chart. This is what I like to call it. This is what happens to your IRA. You can see in my hump chart that I have that same break-even point that we just talked about. 81 years old, I've got my break-even. At my break-even is where my RMDs begin exceeding my earnings. So at my break-even point is where my IRA will achieve its peak value. So that's kind of cool to know. IRA will have its peak value just before your client typically passes away. But let's take that one step further. If instead of just noticing the peak value, you draw this horizontal line and you trace it downward, what you see in the dark blue box is that basically between age 72 and age 92, your client's IRA is essentially at or close to its peak value. So the question becomes, at what do most IRA owners die? That's right, they die between 72 and 92. So for the vast majority of your clients that are in this 18% group, the group that has all the money, these people are going to take the minimum amount out of their IRA while they're alive, known as their RMDs. They'll pay an itsy bitsy amount of tax on those RMDs every year. And then what happens? Their kids inherit the entire value of that IRA, and their kids are going to get walloped in taxes. That's the problem. This is what people don't realize is happening to these IRAs. But when you draw this hump chart for your client, they can see this is what's going to happen to their IRA. So let's talk about what happens in IRA transfer strategy planning. Most clients don't give this a second thought. Many financial advisors don't really give this a second thought. We spend so much of our time thinking about the asset allocation, the return on the portfolio, protecting against market corrections and things like that, that we're looking at all the problems that are just around the corner. We're not looking down into the distance to see what we should be thinking about in the farther future. So what happens? Well, when your client's retired, you probably asked them, hey, what do you want to do during your retirement? And they probably said they wanted to, again, we're talking about this 18% group, the people that have the money. They probably said to you things like this. Oh, we want to join the country club. We want to buy a boat. We want to travel around the world. We're going to redo our kitchen and finish the basement, and we're going to just enjoy ourselves, right? That's what a lot of clients say when it's time to retire. And then what happens? They retire. They realize that's all the money they have. and they start getting worried they'll run out. So they don't spend it, and they don't spend it, and they don't spend it, and they don't spend it. And what happens then? Their kids get it. And you know what their kids do? Their kids join the country club. They buy a boat, they redo their kitchen, they finish their basement, they travel around the world, and they have a good time. Everything your client said they wanted to do. That's what happens. So here's what happens in the typical IRA transfer scenario. Your clients have this IRA. Their beneficiary is typically their children. This is not a scientific estimate, but somewhere around 98 or 99% of the IRA clients I hear about, they've named their children as the beneficiary of their IRA. You know what their kids do with it? They join the country club and buy a boat and finish their basement and redo their kitchen. That's what they do. So how much money is left after the children do all of that? How much of that IRA makes its way down to the grandchildren when the children die? Typically, none of it. So the children get all the money, they have all the fun, the grandchildren get none of it. Your clients who own the IRA today don't necessarily like this story because, as we all know, as the story goes, they like their kids, but they love their grandkids. And when they see their grandkids aren't getting any of this money, that could be frustrating to your clients. If we put numbers to an example like this, we might have a client that has, let's just say, a $500,000 IRA. What are they going to do with it? If they die when it's worth $500,000, they're going to give it to their kids. Their kids are going to pay all of the income taxes due on that IRA, and they're going to use the rest of the money to finish their basement, redo their kitchen, and join the country club. And then what happens? That $200,000 in taxes goes to the IRS. And what ended up as our result? Well, congratulations. You helped your client turn a $500,000 IRA into a nice $300,000 inheritance. Is that what you really wanted to do? Is that what you hold yourself out for your clients? Now, during your annual portfolio reviews, you're sitting down with your clients and you're talking about that $500,000 IRA, and you're rebalancing their portfolio and you're optimizing their return and you're doing all that good stuff. And I don't want to take away from the importance and the value of doing that. But if that's all you're doing and you're not having a conversation about what's going to happen after they're gone, and they leave that IRA to their children, and this $500,000 IRA magically turns into a $300,000 inheritance, or this $1 million IRA turns into a $600,000 inheritance, or this $2 million IRA turns into a $1.2 million inheritance because all of that money went to the IRS and taxes. This is a must-have conversation as part of your annual portfolio review. And because we're going to use life insurance as part of our solution, the younger, the sooner, the better. We need to engage clients in these conversations. So how does that story go? I'm going to share with you a simple story I call 3 circles, 2 questions, and a 3-point value proposition. This is a story I want you to commit to memory. 3 circles, 2 questions, 3-point value proposition. I'm going to show you a cheat sheet at the end of our conversation. It's going to help you dial this story into your coconut so that you can remember it. How does this story go? What you're going to do is you're going to have your client, and you can do this on a video call right now today. Let's just say you're on a video call with your client. You say, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, I'd like you to take out a sheet of paper and draw 3 circles on it. And in the first circle, I want you to put the letters L-O. In the second circle, I want you to put the letter C. And in the third letter, I want you to put the letter G. I want you to know these 3 circles, these are the only 3 places your money can go after you're gone. So let's understand who these 3 circles are. If you knew that the L-O stood for your loved ones, what do you suppose the C stands for? It's not your children, they're in your loved ones circle. So what's the C? That's right, it's your charity. And what's the G? Everyone figures that one out. It's the government. But by asking your client these questions, you're engaging them in the conversation, drawing them in and getting them involved emotionally with what's going on. So they understand the only 3 places their money can go when they're gone is their loved ones, their charities, or to the government. So you're talking to Mr. and Mrs. Jones on a video call. You say, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, as you look down at those circles, I'd like you to take your pen and cross out the circle that you would least like to get your money when you're done with it. They'll chuckle. It'll take them about a nanosecond. And you ask them, what did you cross out? And they'll tell you they crossed out the government. What they're telling you is that they want their wealth to go to their loved ones and to the charities that they care about. And again, back to the question we asked before, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, if there was a way to leave your loved ones and charities even more, you'd probably like to know about it, wouldn't you? They sure would. So remember, I said this story is 3 circles, 2 questions, and a 3-point value proposition. All we've done so far is the 3 circles. Let's get into the 2 questions. What are the 2 questions? Mr. and Mrs. Jones, I've been looking over your portfolio. Remember, this is your 18 percenters, the ones that have the money. Mr. and Ms. Jones, you've accumulated quite a bit of money here. It doesn't look like you'll ever want to touch your IRA. It's just there as a safety net, right? So let me ask you something. If things go the way you have planned, in other words, no major catastrophes, and for a lot of these clients in the 18% group, even if one or even if both of the parents endured some time in a nursing home, maybe they shell out $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 for nursing home care. They'll probably pull that money out of their non-qualified portfolio. That IRA is still going to be sitting there anyway. So, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, if things go the way you have planned, what's going to happen to your IRA after you're gone? Sit back, be quiet, wait for them to answer. After they think about it, they'll tell you the same thing everybody tells you. It's going to our kids. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, you've got so much money in your non-qualified portfolio. It doesn't look like you'll ever need to touch your IRA. So why haven't you given your IRA to your kids already? You know what your clients are going to say. The same 5 words they say every time. I just might need it. It's my safety net. That's my cushion. I can't give it away while I'm still alive. I just might need it. That's your 2 questions. So you've done your 3 circles and your 2 questions. Mr. and Mrs. Jones, you know, I have a lot of clients in a situation very similar to yours. And over again, when I ask them these questions, I tend to get the same response. And that's why I wanted to have a conversation with you today. I have an idea that I'd like to share. Here comes my 3-point value proposition. Using this idea, we will be able to keep your IRA in your care, custody, and control for the rest of your life, just in case you need it, just like you wanted. While we do that, we will be able to double or triple or maybe more the value of the legacy you leave behind for your children and charities. And we'll do all of this without taking any additional investment risk in your portfolio. How can you do all this without taking any additional investment risk? Because the magic that makes this happen is guaranteed premium, guaranteed death benefit, life insurance. It has all the tax advantages and the leverage that makes this work. I'll show you what I mean. So there's your 3 circles, 2 questions, and your 3-point value proposition. And we'll send you something after call that helps remind you what those are so you can memorize this story. So let's talk about how this all works. We get back to our baseline. In our original story, we have the IRA. It goes down to the kids. The kids blow it on their, country club membership, their kitchen, their basement, and traveling around the world. Grandchildren end up with nothing. When we put numbers to our example, we had a $500,000 IRA. The children paid $200,000 in income taxes. They took the $300,000 that was left over. They spent it on all the fun things that they wanted to do, and that was that. So our bar here, the bar for measurement that we're trying to get over is $300,000. Can we do it, and how do we do it? Can we create a better legacy than $300,000? Well, I just suggested to you we might double or triple it, maybe even more. Let's see if that can happen. Let me show you the map. So let's look at life insurance alternatives for transferring IRA wealth. In this first solution, which I call IRA income tax offset, how does income tax offset work? Well, there's still taxes to be paid, but your client's beneficiaries won't pay the taxes. Who's going to pay the taxes if the kids aren't paying the taxes? We're going to hire the life insurance company to pay the taxes. How do you hire the life insurance company to pay the taxes on an IRA? You do it by buying a life insurance policy. So here's what's going to happen. Your client has their IRA, and in addition to their IRA, we're going to buy a life insurance policy. Now, we could use money from the IRA to pay the premiums for the life insurance policy. They could use non-qualified assets. They could use cash flow if they're still working. Any way they want to pay for it is fine. It's up to them. What we're doing is buying a life insurance policy that's large enough to cover the beneficiary's tax burden, right? Let's see how this plays out. Now, what are we going to do? The children will inherit both the life insurance and the IRA. What are the kids going to do with that? They're going to use the life insurance proceeds to pay the taxes to the IRS. Let's put numbers to our example. Now we have a $500,000 IRA. We're going to add $200,000 worth of life insurance death benefit. Now we have a total of $700,000 being transferred to the children. The children use the $200,000 life insurance death benefits to pay the $200,000 in taxes, and look what you've done. You have been able to preserve that legacy for the full $500,000. Now, I often I call this solution my 1% solution. Why do I call it a 1% solution? Because the premiums for this life insurance policy are typically less than 1% of the value of the IRA. So in this example, I have a $500,000 IRA. What's 1% of $500,000? That would be about $5,000. So the premium for this solution would be less than $5,000 a year. Now remember, your client's 65 or 70 years old when you're having this conversation. Mr. and Mrs. Client, we just increased your legacy from $300,000 to $500,000. That's a $200,000 increase in your legacy. How many years would you have to pay $5,000 a year in premium on this life insurance policy before you spend more than the $200,000 you would have spent in taxes? They will respond to you with the exact same answer every single time. They will say, not in my lifetime. Not in my lifetime. I will not live long enough to spend $5,000 a year and spend over $200,000 in premiums. I'd have to live till I'm over 100. They know that this is going to work. So that's why I call income tax offset my 1% solution. What's my next alternative? My next alternative thing I call income tax elimination. Now, there's a little bit of a story that goes behind income tax elimination. It looks kind of like this. When you're talking to these clients in the 18% group, these clients that have all the money, you realize you need to find out if they're philanthropically motivated. Many of them are. How do you find out? You ask them. So imagine having this conversation with one of your wealthier clients, and you say to them, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, are you planning to leave anything to charity after you're gone? And after they give it a moment of thought, they'll come back and say, oh, yeah, sure we are. Yep, we have it in our will, or they have it in their trust. If we got it in our will, we're leaving money to charity when we're gone. The moment they tell you that there's money coming from their will or their trust that's going to a charity, what does it tell you as a financial advisor? It tells you that they're sending non-qualified assets to charity. And most of those non-qualified assets get what at death again? Oh yeah, they get a step up in basis. So not only are you giving away non-qualified assets, but you're giving away your client's step up in basis, which is an enormous tax benefit to their beneficiaries. And you're just giving it away by letting them send money to their charities using their wills and their trusts. And then you look at their IRA beneficiary All right, thanks everyone. Apologize for the technical difficulties. I was presenting right along as you might expect. I had my sounds turned off on my phones, and even though the team was calling me to tell me I had been disconnected, I did not know. So I finished out the presentation. I'll do the same for you here now. So somewhere in this neighborhood of the presentation, we got disconnected talking about leaving a legacy to your IRA beneficiaries using what I call the income tax elimination strategy, where we make all the taxes go away. How do we do that? Here's how. We're going to buy a life insurance policy. In the first example, we bought a life insurance policy equal to the value of the projected income taxes. Here, we're going to buy a life insurance policy equal to the projected value of the IRA. What are we going to do? We're going to leave that life insurance death benefit to the kids. Why? Because life insurance death benefits are income tax free. So the kids inherit the same amount as they would have inherited in their IRA, but they inherit it income tax free. We still have this IRA sitting here. What are we going to do with this IRA? We're going to name a charity as the beneficiary of the IRA. Why? Because the charity won't pay any tax on that. So the charity inherits that IRA, pays no tax. Let's put some numbers on that. If we used our same example, the children will get a $500,000 life insurance death benefit, income tax free. The charity will get a $500,000 IRA, income tax free. What we've created here is a $1 million legacy. Now, if we go back to our original example, if your clients didn't have any help, they would have taken their $500,000 IRA, paid $200 in taxes, and left a $300,000 legacy to their beneficiaries. Here we created a $1 million legacy, which is more than triple the value of the legacy they originally intended to leave. Look what you've done for your client and your client's beneficiaries in terms of the legacy you've created. It's back to our 3-point value proposition. We kept their IRA in their care, custody, and control. We doubled, tripled, or more the value of the legacy, and we did it without taking any additional investment risk by simply buying a life insurance policy. I don't know if you caught this before I got disconnected, but I call this my 2% example because the premiums are typically less than 2% of the value of the IRA. So in this example, a $500,000 IRA, 2% of that would be $10,000. So the premium for this life insurance policy will be less than $10,000 a year. Before your clients get sticker shock, help them observe this. By paying this $10,000 annual premium, we will increase the value of your IRA legacy from $300,000 to $1 million. That's a $700,000 increase. Mr. and Mrs. Jones, how many years would you have to pay $10,000 a year before you pay more than $700,000 in premiums? They know they'll never live long enough for this to happen. So this 2% solution might be a perfect fit. If you graph the three scenarios, your clients can stay where they are and leave their kids $300,000 after tax. They could embrace the tax offset solution and leave them $500,000 because you paid the taxes with the $200,000 life insurance death benefit. Or if they're charitably motivated, they could leave their IRA to charity, leave life insurance to their children, and create a $1 million total legacy, in addition to the non-qualified assets that they would leave to their kids who could now get that step up in basis. A third option that you can consider looks like the first option because we're buying a life insurance policy to pay the taxes, but this is how we're going to do it. You leave the IRA to the surviving spouse. The surviving spouse does a Roth conversion. They'll have to pay tax. Where do they get the money to pay the taxes? From the life insurance policy that was on the spouse who died. Now the surviving spouse does a Roth conversion, pays the taxes with the life insurance policy, and they're sitting on a Roth IRA. If we put numbers to that example, let's just say it was a $500,000 IRA. You expect the taxes on the Roth conversion to be $200,000. So the combined value that goes to the surviving spouse is $700,000. They do their Roth conversion, they pay the $200,000 of tax, and they end up with a $500,000 Roth IRA. What happens next? Under the Secure Act, they leave that $500,000 Roth IRA to their kids, and over the next 10 years, it grows to be worth $834,000. Now the Secure Act requires all the money to come out, but because it's a Roth IRA instead of a traditional IRA, the kids take out $834,000 totally income tax free, giving them another alternative method that they could use. So I'm going to cut out some of the other stuff that I had on the back end, but that gives you all three solutions. Just remember our 3-point value proposition. Keep the IRA in your care, custody, and control. Double, triple, or more the value of the legacy you can create. Do it all without any additional investment risk in your portfolio. And talking to Ryan as we were bringing the technology back up, because of that little hiccup, we're not going to have time for Q&A today, but hopefully you got some ideas out of this that you can immediately put into action to help your valued high net worth clients create a legacy they never thought they could possibly create without your help. And when you show them the vision on how they can double, triple, or more the value of the legacy they leave behind, and protect it from all of the taxes, they're going to come back to you for more ideas. And they're going to bring their kids and their friends to you to help you grow your business. This is really impactful stuff. Use it to help your clients achieve and protect their lifetime of financial security and create legacies that they never thought possible. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Ryan and the team.